Welcome, everyone. It is 9:01 a.m., and I'd like to welcome you all here. Happy new fall semester to all of you. Thank you for being here today. If you would, please stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Lord, we thank you today for bringing us all here for the start of a new semester. It's an exciting time on campus. It's an exciting time for our students and our faculty. We ask, Lord, that you would give us wisdom in leading this fantastic institution of higher education. We ask that you would help us to instill a culture where service to others is first and foremost, where we can show grace and mercy to those around us as you have shown us, where we can build community together and help students succeed in our county, for their families, for those that depend upon them to better their lives. We thank you for this opportunity. We look for wisdom in this new semester. I thank you for all those dedicated people around us who make this place run so smoothly. It's in your wonderful name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'll start off today with some recognitions. We have a couple presentations for retirement resolutions. So if we could, I'd love to invite Dr. Thomas Krall up to the front with Dr. Williams. Uh-oh. Dr. Timothy Murray, if you could please come up to the front. Welcome.
Good morning. Whereas Dr. Timothy Murray began his career as an adjunct instructor of applied ethics on the St. Petersburg campus of St. Petersburg College in August of 2002. And whereas Dr. Murray, a caring and motivating classroom instructor, joined the Applied Ethics Institute as a full-time faculty member in 2005. He taught on many campuses until being placed on the downtown campus as its first full-time ethics teacher. And whereas Dr. Murray was devoted to teaching and learning, he endured himself to his students by attending to their needs and challenging them to strive for excellence in their classwork and in life. And whereas Dr. Murray, highly respected by his colleagues, was a willing participant in college and campus activities, he utilized his legal knowledge, political interest, and local connections to arrange and host several ethics forums for students, faculty, and the public, including bringing nationally syndicated radio host Dennis Prager and our college on 2 occasions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the St. Petersburg College Board of Trustees and the total college community hereby recognize and appreciate the outstanding contributions to the college by Dr. Timothy Murray and extend to him our best wishes for enjoyment throughout the years ahead. Said resolution being adopted and approved by the Board of Trustees, St. Petersburg College, this 20th day of August 2019. Dr. Murray. Thank you so much.
I just want to say I'm very grateful to give me the privilege of being in the classroom for 17 years. Who knows? I may be back. Sorry, Andy, you don't want your lens.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, for your wonderful work and service here.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to introduce a new trustee to our board, Mr. Thomas Kidwell. Tommy, as some of us call him, you all are welcome to as well. Mr. Kidwell currently serves as Vice President at UBS Financial Services and has previously worked as a financial advisor with Merrill Lynch. He's a graduate of Yale University, where he majored in American Studies and is a former minor league baseball player and coach with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow.
Mr. Kidwell will be succeeding Bill Foster and is appointed for a term of 4 years. Tommy, we want to welcome you here. I've known Mr. Kidwell for quite a few years. I don't know how long, since we were younger and dumber, we should say, Tommy. It's a pleasure to have you here. We know that you are going to bring wisdom and insight to this board and that you're passionate about education. Thank you for your service to this college. I don't know if you have anything to say. Now's the time.
I'm honored to be here.
Oh yeah, hit your...
I'm very honored to be here and to be a part of the Board of Trustees for St. Petersburg College. So thank you for having me.
Of course.
We welcome you. Thank you.
No one challenged him to baseball, though. He will win.
We will win.
He'll outplay you. With that, Dr. Tom Furlong, I'd love to welcome you up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam President, Mr. Kidwell. Nice to get to know you here. I can't believe a year's gone by, but this is the annual meeting where I bring money from the state. So, not as much as we sometimes need in other categories, but this is a nice extra thing. So the Florida College System Foundation, and the reason I'm the one involved is I'm on the State Foundation Board, and so the chancellor's asked me to make this presentation. The Florida College System Foundation will award $1,053,000 in scholarship funds to Florida's 28 colleges this year. Scholarships are aimed at relieving the nursing shortage and helping students who are the first in their family to attend college. This year, the St. Petersburg College Foundation will be receiving the following: nursing and allied health scholarships, $17,473 from Florida Blue; first generation scholarships, $31,602 from Helios; $5,701 from Bank of America, total of $54,776. Florida Blue money is for nursing or allied health students. Scholarships have been awarded since 2006. Last year's scholarship served 702 students. 9 nursing students received $2,000 each, and St. Petersburg College has received over $200,000 from Florida Blue in this category. The Helios Foundation scholarships are for first generation in college. Scholarships have been awarded since 2007. Last year, 24 students from SPC. St. Petersburg College has received over $300,000 in Helios funds since inception. And finally, the Dream Makers. Dream Makers Scholarship Award was a gift from Bank of America. Scholarships are for first generation in college. Scholarships have been awarded since 2001, can be used for tuition, books, and childcare. St. Petersburg College has received $60,000 in these scholarships since the inception. On behalf of the Florida System Foundation, congratulations to the students who received these funds. The State Foundation is a group not unlike our college foundation, and many of the colleges, many of the 28, these funds pretty much are their foundation. They get this, that's what they have from private money. So we're fortunate to have our foundation director and foundation board, and the work you do is so much bigger than this, that this is just a nice supplement to it. But it's really appreciated from the state, and thank you for giving me some time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Furlong. Every little bit helps, and we will take it and use it for sure. Thank you for the update.
Sure.
Okay, we will move to our annual organizational meeting, which I will call to order right now. Section 1001.61 of the Florida statutes requires that each year at its first regular meeting after July 1st, the College Board of Trustees shall organize by electing a chair whose duty it shall be to preside at all meetings, to call special meetings of the board, and to attest to actions of the board. And the board shall also elect a vice chair to act as chair during the absence or disability of the chair. So with that, we'll move pursuant to this requirement. I'm going to open the floor for nominations for the Chair of the Board of Trustees for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Floor is open for nominations.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Katie Cole.
I will second that nomination. Are there any other on the floor? Hearing none, I declare the nomination closed, and I call for a vote on the nominations. All those in favor of Katie Cole being chairman of the board for the 2019-2020 fiscal year, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. As a result of the vote, Katie Cole is declared the board chair for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. And the gavel changes hands. Ms. Cole, this meeting is yours. Thank you. Here's the rest of the script, yep. We're going to switch spaces. We're going to make it official.
Switch the name tags too.
Oh, yeah, the name tags. I got it.
And my copy. I won't need it yet. Wasn't prepared for this. I know. Thank you so much for Trustee Bello's nomination and the support of the board, and a special thank you to Chair Stonesifer, who for 2 years has led this organization and the Board of Trustees with such integrity and devotion. And I know all of you all have seen him at so many student-centered events, athletic events, faculty events, and he has given us, each of us, huge shoes to fill with respect to our service and our personal devotion to St. Petersburg College. So thank you so much. I have to find my place on the script here, so excuse me. So we would now continue in the organizational meeting and open the floor for nominations for the Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
I would like to nominate Ms. Bridget Bello for Vice Chair.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, Ms. Bello?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Bello. As a result of the vote, Bridget Bello is declared the new Vice Chair for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. With respect to our meetings, Rule 6HX 23-1.04 of the Board of Trustees Rules and Procedures requires the Board of Trustees to establish a schedule at its annual organizational meeting for its regular meetings for the college's fiscal year, including day, time, and location. The proposed schedule is included in your agenda packet under Agenda Item 2-C3. I would like to recommend one modification is changing the September 17th, 2019 meeting to the following week, September 24th, 2019, to accommodate the President's travel schedule to Tallahassee that week for some college business. And so unless otherwise scheduled, regular meetings of the board to take action on general business of the college shall occur on the third Tuesday of each month, starting at 9 a.m. at St. Petersburg College's Epicenter, located at 13805 58th Street North, Largo, in room 1453, which is here. Meetings of the trustees as the governing board of directors of the St. Petersburg Collegiate High School, which is our charter school, shall be scheduled in accordance with the requirements of Florida statutes, section 1002.33, and properly noticed special meetings and workshops may be scheduled annually at this organizational meeting or scheduled throughout the year. So is there a motion to accept this schedule with the change to September 24th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. The next item on our agenda is the appointment of representatives to direct support organizations. And for the benefit of Trustee Kidwell and for those in the audience, we have 3 specific direct support organizations that the trustees are assigned to support: the St. Petersburg College Foundation, the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art, and the Institute of Strategic Policy Solutions. For the past year, just for information's sake, I served as the representative of the trustees to the foundation board. Mr. Foster served as the representative to Lipa Ratner, and Ms. Bello served as the representative to the Institute of Strategic Policy Solutions, as shown in the agenda item. So I'm not prepared for this one. Because I just read the next line on my script, which is
Your call,
the chair appoints each trustee to the representative of the board and the executive committee of each direct support organization established under this section, including those established before July 1st, 1998, pursuant to Florida Statutes 1004.70 sub 2. So I believe, Ms. Bello, there was a mutual desire to retain your service to the Institute of Public Policy. And Mr. Stonesifer and Mr. Kidwell. Oh, and here's Mr. Gibbins. Mr. Kidwell, would you be willing to serve as the representative of the foundation board?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Oh.
you can. I mean, is there a conflict?
Yeah, that's what, because of your employment.
Yeah, it might be a conflict.
Perhaps not. Yeah. We will move on. Mr. Stonesifer, would you be willing to serve as that?
Love to.
Thank you. And then we have the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art. Mr. Kidwell, would you be willing to serve on the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art board? Thank you.
And that board has also started utilizing WebEx and other mediums for meetings. So
Yeah, because that's good, Ms. Kidwell, that's the tarpon spray. They want to use the web. I travel a lot.
Yeah, you can use
may wanna
WebEx.
It's fine.
Okay, so we have Mr. Stonesifer to the foundation, Mr. Kidwell to the Lipa Ratner Museum of Art, and Ms. Bello to the Institute of Strategic Policy Solutions. So with that, we do need to have a motion. Do we need a motion to approve those 3, or it's just for my,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, moving on to section 3 of the agenda. The first thing on the agenda under board chair is, first of all, thank you again for this honor. And we do have one action item, which is the employment agreement and presidential contract with Dr. Williams. At our work session that we hosted earlier this month, it was brought to our attention that Dr. Williams' contract, while not expired, the board expressed a desire to continue it for an additional year based on her superlative annual evaluation that she received. And so the contract specifically says annual contract review following the annual performance review shall be provided for before September 1st of the same calendar year, wherein the board shall review the term, the base salary, and the additional compensation provided for in this contract or is subsequently amended. So as an example, if this board would like to extend the term of the contract for 1 year like we discussed earlier this month, and appropriate, you can make a motion, and I can help you with that specific language if you would like, or somebody else can read it. I'm sorry?
We need specific language to do that?
Well,
I move that following a review of the president's annual evaluation and employment contract pursuant to section 6.f, that a motion is made to amend and extend the contract dated September 28, 2018 and as amended November 13th, 2018, to add 1 year to the term. So this motion is to amend and extend the current contract from June 30th, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Dr. Williams, on the 1-year extension. This is our portion of our meeting where we have comments from the board and the president and public comments. So first, I would like to welcome Steve Shepard, who's in the back with the St. Petersburg College Foundation Board of Directors. Thank you, Mr. Shepard, for being here today. I spoke last month of the Foundation Board's desire and our desire as trustees to have more interaction with one another and ensure that our fundraising efforts on behalf of the foundation are aligned with the college's mission and vision and goals and how those two can come more together. So we appreciate Mr. Shepard being here as a representative of the Foundation Board of Directors. Also, last week was a Foundation Board meeting, and we received a great annual report and a clean audit with respect to the Foundation's activities. So I know those documents are available to each of you if you're interested. And we appreciate Mr. Turtle's efforts. You'll be happy to know that with a couple of estate gifts, the foundation, as Mr. Turtle spoke about last month, is ahead of the game in the first quarter of this fiscal year, but not to rest on his laurels. He put those gifts below the line, so his team is still working fast and furious to meet their other goals until year end. So with that, I'll open the floor to our
Ms.
other...
Chair?
Yes.
I just want to welcome once again Mr. Kidwell to the board. He's going to be a great addition. And Mr. Gibbins, congratulations on your reappointment. You're the wisest person of the bunch up here.
I'm not so sure about that.
You've been on this board for a long time, and we appreciate your wisdom here. Congratulations on the
Thank you.
reappointment. And I'll just say I briefly, unfortunately, attended the Welcome Back faculty. I guess we're calling it Welcome Back Titans now. Yeah, new name. Had a great time. The energy level was high. It was great being there. It was fantastic to see everyone so engaged and ready to start a new semester. I'm glad we do events like that and pull everyone together in the same room. And thank you for your leadership there, Dr. Williams. That's all I have.
Ms. Bello? Mr. Gibbons?
Madam Chair, I just also would like to reiterate the point that immediate past Chair Stonesifer made in terms of Mr. Kidwell. They're going to be a great asset to the board, a real community leader. And after talking for a while, we realized that we have a lot of mutual friends and people that we know. He's going to be a real asset to this board. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Williams? Yes.
We have been working all summer gearing up for the first semester of the term. We had an awesome, amazing Welcome Titans time. The energy was very high. The team did the work. So I did not plan it, they did, and so my hand clap goes to you guys. You've done a very good job. I'm very proud of that work. And so we're ready to gear up for the new year, and we're very glad that you came and that you spent some time with us. You really missed the afternoon part. That was the really crazy part, right? It was amazing, but we're ready to roll, and everybody's here to do what we need to do to get us where we need to go. So that's my report so far.
I do not have any public comment cards, but is there anyone from the public who wanted to address the Board of Trustees today? Seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. Included in your package are 2 sets of minutes, one from our trustees meeting of June 18th,
So moved.
2019. Second. All in favor for approval of those minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. And then the Board of Trustees workshop of August 1st, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Our monthly reports from our general counsel, Ms. Gardner.
Yes, good morning, and congratulations, Madam Chair, and welcome to Trustee Kidwell. As a follow-up to our governance training at the workshop, I just want to let you know the materials, including the governance booklet, are going to be on the website with live links, so you have links to the statutes pertaining to board governance and the DSOs, direct support organizations. And as well, I have left you a copy of the pocket guide for Sunshine. And as soon as we get the most recent copy of the Sunshine Manual, I'll make sure that the chair gets that as well.
Thank you.
So that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions or follow-up from our governance training that we had? Okay. Moving on to the meat of our agenda, we have our strategic focus and planning section. And so first we have Dr. Bernard.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and congratulations. Members of the board, Dr. Williams. My name is Pat Bernard. I'm the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Services, and this morning I'm going to brief you on our fall enrollment as of yesterday morning. The data has changed, and I'll share that in just a moment as well. Before I do, I want to just share the outcomes from the 2018-19 year. You see in the first bar there, the first chart at the top, that our actual student semester hours exceeded what we budgeted for by 3.8%. In a few minutes, you'll hear from Jeanette Hunt, who will share the impact of that on our revenue, student revenue. The bottom chart shows actual student semester hours for 2018-19 compared to 2017-18, and we were just above flat at a 0.1% gain, which has not happened year over year since 2014. So that's some good news. So here's where we were yesterday morning. Overall head count, we are minus 2%. Overall student semester hours, minus 1.6%. I peaked at enrollment this morning, and we're at minus 1.4%. So this time last year, I stood before the board and reported on fall 18 enrollment. We were minus 2.7% at the beginning of the term. By the end of the term, we were at minus 1.2, so we gained quite a bit of ground over the year, over the semester rather. We do have a session that starts in September with our Express session. We have another session that starts in October with our 8-week 2 session, so we'll be focused on what we need to do to get students enrolled throughout the remainder of the fall term. In terms of that overall SSH, the lower division was minus 1.2, down, and the upper division enrollment was minus 3.7% down. This is a slice that looks at headcount data by students in what we call academic program. You see on the left, the smallest category, it's our certificate programs. These are short-term, less than a year programs. We have a little bit of a gain there at 5.8%. We have a pretty significant gain in, decline in our associate in science degree programs at 5.7%. However, we did some recoding of students recently, and about 250 AS students were moved to AA students, so it's magnifying the decline in AS, and really with that we'd be about 2.5% down in both the AS and the AA categories. You see the baccalaureate head count is down by 3.6%. And our non-degree seeking students, which includes our transient students, students that are just here for enrichment purposes, it also includes our collegiate high school students. We're about flat. Now, we did welcome 125 new collegiate high school students at our Tarpon Springs campus, and they're included in that non-degree count there. I did want to share this bit of good news. One of our strategic goals, 3-year strategic goals around recruitment, was to increase the articulated AA programs by 100%. So those are our FUSE, that's our relationship that we have with the University of South Florida, and our IGNITE program, the relationship we have with FAMU. Using the baseline of 2017-18, We had 380 students in those programs. We grew that to 533 last year. 40% increase, something to be very proud of. The goal is to get to 760 by 2021. I'm very confident we'll do that. There's a little asterisk there next to the Ignite. So we had 46 students in the Ignite program in 2018-19. This fall, we have 88 students in the Ignite program. So we've almost doubled that over the course of the year. So
Awesome.
very proud of the work that we're doing there. This looks at enrollment type and continuing students, new students, and readmits. Continuing are students that have been here at least one semester in the last year. We're down 2.1%. About 6 or 7 weeks ago, we were down about 4% in continuing students. We have a problem with getting students to take action, and a lot of students come late. New students were at minus 0.8%, and readmit students, those are students who have been with us before, but have been out for a year or more, and they're coming back, and we're down 3.5% in that category. This slices enrollment headcount by ethnicity. We are down 1% with our black students. We're up 1.1% with our Asian students. We're up 1.1% with our Hispanic students. Down 3.6% with our white students. Now, I took the liberty of looking at the Pinellas County census data and comparing proportionately where do we stand. So Pinellas County, overall, black citizens represent 11% of the county, and they represent 13.4% of our students. Asian students represent 3.6% of the county, and they represent 4.2% of our student body. Hispanics represent 10% of the county population, and yet they're 15.7% of our population. And white represents 74% overall in the county, and we're at 62% white. So the purpose of that is just to show, while we do have a decline in black students there, we have a very diverse student body, and we are 38% non-white. I'd also like to share, I don't have a slide on this, but one of our other recruitment goals, 3-year recruitment goals, was to increase FTIC, first time in college, minority students. In 2018-19, we grew that by 7.6%. We went from 1,982 students to 2,132 FTIC minority students. So we're doing a good job attracting minority FTIC new students. This slices headcount by gender. Females are down 1.2%. Males are down 3.8%. Nationally, according to the American Association of Community Colleges, females represent 56% of community college students. In the state of Florida, females represent 59% with our state and community colleges in Florida. And here at SPC, they're at 63%. So I think we've got to focus more on attracting and maintaining our male students. I know there's efforts led by Dr. Joe Smiley with our African American male students, but I think we've got to focus on males as a whole. This looks at enrollment by age. Really the only gain is 18 and under. Some of that gain is the 125 students at Tarpon and the Collegiate High School, that new cohort. 19 to 21 is slightly down. All other age categories are down, and you see that the one that's down the most is our oldest population, 36 and older, at minus 5.3%. This looks at headcount by enrollment status. Full-time, we're slightly up at 0.1%, but part-time, we're down 3%. And generally speaking, our older students tend to be more part-time, so this makes sense. You've seen this slide before. I'm happy to report that as of, I think this date is as of Friday, while the overall number of graduates in these 16 feeder high schools has gone down a little bit, we've actually attracted a few more this fall than last fall. and our yield is at 30.9% compared to 30.2%. Valencia is one that we, I heard Dr. Williams use the term on Friday, we're gunning for Valencia, but Valencia is about 30%, so we're right there with Valencia, and this is going to grow. This will grow as we hit express session. The last slide I have to share with you is from our financial aid department. This shows the number of FAFSA. This is the free application for financial assistance. There's a trend, a national trend, a trend in the state of Florida, and a trend here at the college. The last 5 years, the number of students that are filling out the application is going down. It ranges here anywhere from 13 to 16%. So we're right in the thick of that. The state of Louisiana now requires high school seniors to fill out the FAFSA. Texas will soon become the second state to do that. Mike Bennett is keeping an eye on the state policy to see if Florida will head in that direction. So as I wrap up, just to summarize, 18-19 was a good year overall. We had a little bit of an increase over the year before to actual, and we exceeded our budget by 3.8%. We start the year with a -2% head count and -1.6% SSH, but as I said, I'm confident we'll make up that ground. Baccalaureate seems to be a little bit of a problem right now. We're at -3.6% head count and -3.7% student semester hours. We did welcome 125 new collegiate high school students at our Tarpon Springs campus. We saw some gains with our Fuse and Ignite students. The largest declines seem to be in our white, male, older, part-time students, ranging from 3 to 5% declines there. 2018-19 increase in FTIC minority, I mentioned that, was at 7.6% last year. Slight increase in the yield for Pinellas County graduates, and the decline in FAFSA applications, which we will continue to keep our eye on. So with that, what questions do you have for me?
Go ahead.
Mr. Stonesifer?
Thank you, Dr. Renard. Going back to the high school numbers, what do you think led to a larger number of high school students choosing St. Pete College? Was it anything that changed on our strategy, or was it USF St. Pete getting wrapped into USF Tampa? Is there anything in particular you can attribute that to?
No, I think it's our strategy, Mr. Stonesifer. We're very intentional about the high schools. That's one area that I think we do a really good job on. We have some other areas where we need to focus. But coordinated effort with the provost, having relationships with the principals. As a matter of fact, in the next month, they'll have a breakfast with all the principals, probably in this room. The recruiters going out to high schools, along with academic advisors going out into the high schools. A great relationship that we have with Jeff Sesta and his team with dual enrollment, and trying to do a more intentional focus with attracting those students that are already taking courses through dual enrollment, early college,
Right.
and keeping them here with us. I think that one area that we can probably improve on with high schools is going after the parents of the high school students and getting them more involved in that decision.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Gibbins?
Good job, Dr. Renard, to you and your team. I guess I have two specific questions. You talked about African-American males being down and Dr. Smiley having a plan for that. I've talked to probably 10 parents in the last 2 weeks that have taken their kids to either Orlando to go to a community college or Santa Fe. And all of them seem to be African-American males. I ask all of them, do they know our head of our recruiting, Reid? So what are we doing with Reggie? Because, I mean, these young people, he relates to them very well. Do we have a recruitment plan with Mr. Reid that specifically speaks to African-American males where he's out touching them or something? Because, I mean, it would seem like we could make up some of that ground if we had somebody that they could relate to. So I understand that Dr. Smiley does a great job. There's not an attack on Dr. Smiley. But I'm not out talking to 20-year-olds because I'm not 20 years old, right? So
Yes, Mr. Reid is involved in the community. He's one person. I've got him also focused on our business community. But I know that our recruiter for the downtown Midtown campus and our recruiter for the St. Petersburg Gibbs campus, they're both African-American males. So it's a team effort. Mr. Reid cannot be everywhere.
But do we have a specific plan in place that speaks to, from Reggie or whoever else down, to recruit African-American males? Do we have a specific plan?
That is what Trustee Gibbins, we're working on a specific plan. We do
Okay.
not have
All
a
right.
specific plan for African-American males. Dr. Smiley has a committee, including students, African-American male students, to talk to them about what do we need to do to not only recruit them, but to retain them and make sure we're engaging them at the college to keep them here and successful. With recruitment, our current model needs to be revamped. Dr. Connor is working on that. It's not where it needs to be. And so especially, we're doing great with high schools, but our high school enrollment is just a small part of the college's enrollment. The majority of our SSHs are taken up by adult learners who are not high schoolers. So we spend time with high schoolers, but when we think about the African-American male that's struggling, many of them are the adult African-American male. And so the strategy that Dr. Smiley, Mr. Reid and others are doing right now, they're working on that, and they have students involved now to tell us exactly what their experience is like and what we need to do better to not only attract them, but to keep them. The other thing that I've learned with African-American males is that it's not all the onboarding, but some of it is what kind of programs are we offering that best fits their interests, and how do we engage them on careers? And helping them understand what the options are. So we have some work to do in that area, and Dr. Smiley and other males at the college and students and community members are on that committee.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If we could also have parents on that committee, as well as people who want to go back to school but are finding themselves in situations where they can't. Because I think what we're finding is, one, they don't find a lot of people on the campus that they can relate to, right? I mean, you can make me a recruiter, but that ain't gonna make me good at it, right? I mean, just because I'm here, I don't understand every issue that's going on in some people's lives. And when I say those people, I mean people that are trying to get back in school, whether they're in high school or whether they're graduated high school or whether they're 35 or 45. And sometimes, for example, Dr. Williams and I had coffee, and the young lady's been out of school, 15 years, had some troubles with the law. She was a little bit afraid to even come tell somebody, and we were able to help her get back into school. So, I mean, why don't we look at maybe having some folks like that on that committee to talk about their fears and where they need to go, and so we can point them in the right direction early to get them back in school. So
I think
that was I guess that's
we're
the
on
comment.
the same page. I think you're right on, and that is why we do have some men who, some are students, some may be in trouble as students, but we haven't gone to parents, and so we can definitely.
Because I don't understand. I asked the lady the other day, Dr. Williams, I said, hey, you just drove your son to Gainesville to get an apartment and to go to Santa Fe Community College. I'm not understanding that. Like, it's the same thing. The same courses, you got to do the same exact thing. Like, I just don't get it.
Sometimes
so I want to
it's the
know what
program.
the issue is.
Sometimes.
So I agree, Mr. Gibbons, and I think about 6 weeks ago we had that conversation collectively and received a very thorough report on specifically African American male students and where our strategic plan was. So saying that it's now in development or what that plan is going to be, I think you all have heard that from the trustees' standpoint, it's extremely important for us to understand what that plan is. So can we ask, is there a time frame that we can expect the specific plan to be brought back? Not for us to approve, but just to know, that what that is, because I think that we hear monthly that this is obviously a concern of the trustees.
Well, it's definitely a concern of the college as well, and we had already set September as the date for us to bring it back. So We're working on it.
Madam Chair, one last question is, I heard a lot about what we're doing at this particular point, but what do the retention rates, Dr. Renard, look like year over year from last year? Are we retaining students at a higher rate, or are we losing students?
I don't have that data, Mr. Gibbons.
Could you just send it to me?
I can respond to that.
Okay, all
I
right.
shared it with the faculty on Friday, and our retention rates are going up, and I'll send that to you so
Thank
you
you.
can see. I'll send it to the whole board, so you can get the same presentation that we gave faculty.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Dr. Renard, thank you. I just wanted to comment that my first couple months as a trustee, year and a half ago, 2 years ago, was when Mr. Reid was first hired, and we started talking about this plan and how the college needed to shift its emphasis to recruitment. So congratulations, because in a very short period of time with a limited staff, we're seeing some increases, but we've certainly stopped the tide of bleeding, which is what we needed to do before we can implement these very significant policies moving forward. So congratulations.
Madam Chair, I'll just add one thing. You know, recruiting, as Mr. Kidwell's probably been through, I know I've been through, it's kind of like recruiting for sports. You got to get in the living room with some people, get your hands dirty, and that's why I asked what part of this did Mr. Reid play, because he's also been recruited. As Dr. Williams knows, her husband has been a part of that process, but it is, you know, I wasn't going to the University of Florida. I was going where I thought, to somewhere else, and I won't say where, because I'll probably get hazed if I say it.
Come on.
But once the coaches talked to my mother and told them that I was going to graduate, no matter what, it ended up being a little bit of a different situation. So that's why I'm saying to you that people that understand that process, it is a very different process to recruit. You know, one of the reasons that P-Tech, or what do they call themselves? Pinellas Technical College. They're not a college, but they have Chris Blackwell, who is a basketball coach who knows how to recruit, go in the classroom, and they are convincing these young people to go to P-Tech, and then you know what happens when they get their certificate? They come to St. Pete College and they say, I want to have this stuff put onto my file, transferred for college credit, and then we say to them, you didn't go to college. You went to a technical school. This doesn't transfer.
That's true.
But why is he getting them to go there? Because he has a relationship, he's out and about, he is recruiting like he's recruiting for a basketball team. He's not recruiting like we recruit, like, which is, well, let me go to the high schools. And I'm not saying that we're doing a bad job. Obviously, we are doing a good job at it, a way better job than we have been in the past. Let me just say that. But the difference is the attitude and the mentality of the individual and how they're recruiting. And Dr. Williams can speak to that because she's seen it firsthand with him. So that's why I asked that question. I want to be sure that we start taking that approach, that we can get a lot of these students and we can help them be successful. I think they think they're not going to be successful if they come here, but if they go to P-Tech,
They're going to be.
they're going to be okay, because you know they haven't done well in high school. They don't think the entrance exam scares everybody. I don't know why. It's just a thermostat to see where you are. But I don't know why that scares a lot of people from coming to SPC. So
I would like to add that, Chair Cole, we did give the board the recruitment plan. The plan is done. What we have realized over time is not just the recruitment of African-American males. We were more concerned about the success rates of African-American males. So a recruitment plan has been in place 2 years ago. We are revamping that plan because of some of what you said. I almost called you your first name, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
But the thing that I want to make sure the board knows is there is a recruitment plan. It was presented to you. The plan was not set up for African-American males. And I also want to make sure we don't miss African-American women. The African-American demographics as a whole is struggling in success. And so that's the biggest concern that I have. They're struggling once they get here. We need to figure out how to help them. There is a plan to recruit. The plan that we have for recruitment right now is not specific to African American students. It also does not clarify how we get into the businesses and recruit adult learners. Those are the hardest ones to get, and that's our largest group. And these are individuals who are 25, 35, 45, coming to college for the first time. So the plan that we need to revamp has to be comprehensive. It has to be specific to the various populations that we're trying to get in, but the retention plan
Yeah.
to make sure that our minority and underserved and students of low socioeconomic backgrounds succeed. And so we talked about that on Friday as well, that, and I think Jeff Briggs brought it out. He said courage over comfort, and that we have to move forward. And so we're dusting off the plan. We're going to make sure that recruitment includes African Americans, but it's really retention that we need to focus on, because the success rates of our minority population and those underserved is still far, huge gap.
Well, when
I wanna be honest.
non-students see the success of
Other
their
students, right,
neighbors
that's
and
right.
friends, then
They'll come.
that in and of itself is.
I don't want to
Exactly.
be on this forever, but Dr. Williams, did Hispanic students struggle as much as African Americans?
Not in all subjects, no.
So they're doing better in terms of retention as well.
They're doing better in retention. Correct.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Renard.
Good job, Pat.
Moving on to Budget and Finance, Ms. Hunt.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, trustees. Dr. Williams. Welcome, Trustee Kidwell. This morning, my report is on the year end of our fiscal year 18-19 operating budget. So we'll first focus on our revenue. First, looking at our student tuition and our fees. This includes all of our student tuition, also our distance learning fees, technology fees, lab fees, other fees such as possibly parking or transcript application fees. You see in the yellow side of the chart, our budget for fiscal year 18-19 was $61.5 million for that category, and we came in 1% above that at $62.1 million. The next line item is our state funding. This includes our Florida college system. It also includes lottery, performance funding, and our industry certifications. We came in at $72.2 million. It was about $79,000 more than what the state appropriated. The reason for that is in our industry certifications. We budgeted for $500,000, we received $579,000. The next line item is our other revenues. It includes some of our miscellaneous revenue, our interest, dividends. One of the items I'd like to highlight in this category is our facility campus rentals. We had a plan to increase and be more robust with that plan of the revenue. In the prior fiscal year, we had about $130,000 worth of revenue in that category. We ended the year at $222,000, which was about a 71% increase. The next line item is our fund transfers in for our auxiliary. We budgeted $3.1 million. We transferred in about $2.4 million. The last line item is our reserves. You all are aware we had a 3-year plan to reduce the reliance on reserve. You see here that in our year end, we used $0 for our operating budget. And so that gives us a total of revenue for $142.6 million. The chart below looks at just our tuition revenue portion of the budget. The red line is our budgeted amount at $50.8 million, and the blue line is our actual at $51.2 million. We'll see on the next slide, we go into detail of that tuition revenue. The top chart shows our credit tuition, which are our algebra, biology, composition courses. We budgeted $47.9 million there. We ended with $969,000 more than the budgeted amount. The lower left shows our PSAV, which is our post-secondary adult vocation courses. These courses, we see that the budgeted amount was $634. In the fiscal year, we ended at $531. But what I want to note for is those courses are not in the same schedule as our credit courses, which sometimes, depending on when the class starts and when the cohort the dollars for the cohort are due sometimes crosses fiscal years. So the revenue, we had over $100,000 worth of revenue for PSAV that was coded in the very first weeks of our new fiscal year. With that revenue, we came in at the budgeted amount of about $633,000. The next chart is our non-credit tuition. You see here, and you've seen throughout the last few months, we have been trailing behind on the projection of the budgeted amount. Dr. Williams and Andrew Henning have been working with the consultant to revamp the plan for our non-credit for the current fiscal year. The next screen is our expenditures. We see here for our personnel and benefits, we budgeted $110.4 million. We came in at $109.1 million. With that, we had $1.2 million that we did not spend in this category. We did use some of that money for our current expense category, where we see we came in at $30.8 million. Two of the items that are in this category that were over was, one, we had the unplanned transfer to the health insurance reserve of $3.5 million, which we assured you that in our overall budget, we would still remain in the overall budget amount. The other portion that we went over is our student waivers and scholarships, and three of the categories that were about $500,000 higher than the prior year. One was our active military waivers increased, also for our Department of Children and Families, and then thirdly, the Dreamers category. With the capital category, we had about $2 million worth of expenses for a total operating amount of $142 million. One of the things I do want to note is for our revenue, our variance of budget to actual was 0.2%. For our total expense operating, the variance was 0.6%, which left us with a operating budget surplus of about $630,000.
Congratulations.
Any questions on the year-end budget report?
Just going back to anybody else have a question? I had a question about the non-credit tuition, and we just saw in Dr. Bernard's report that the certificate programs were up, enrollment was up by 3%. Mm-hmm. Is that, I have to align what we're doing versus what we're getting paid to do. So is that increase in enrollment, we can expect then next year to see that benefit here in the non-credit tuition?
So I have seen,
or it could be in PSAV, depending
just
on.
looking at the July numbers of the new fiscal year, mm-hmm. we're up $7,000 from the prior year revenue.
Okay.
So we do see a slight increase there in the revenue actuals.
Okay.
Ms. Hunt, isn't it true the non-credit is basically the workforce?
Yes, non-credit is our
not the certificate particularly.
It's different, yeah. Those are
that was
two
what I was trying
totally
to
different
reconcile.
things. The workforce piece, we have completed with our consultant. We are working to revamp the entire division and program to move that so that we close that gap.
Sure.
But it's not, what you're seeing here is not the, it's the workforce development piece. That's
so where
what
would
this
our
is.
certificate programs be reflected? In the PSAV? Credit. Or still in the credit? In credit, okay.
So that's what that. Yeah.
Okay.
I know at one point, the fire rescue or whatever it is, the courses that they take were 9 credit. We fixed that, right? That's been fixed.
Are you talking about the EMT?
EMT,
We made that
yeah.
the PSAV.
Okay.
We made that PSAV, so I
And
believe
tell
it's
us all what
financially-
PSAV stands for, please.
Yeah.
It's post-secondary
Adult vocational.
adult vocational.
So they
and I-
actually get credit for it. It's moved to the credit side as opposed to.
And I believe it's financial aid eligible.
Eligible.
So that was
Yes,
what
we're
the
getting-
I remember that was a
movement
big issue where people weren't getting financial aid and they.
It was.
Yeah, okay.
So that's been changed.
So what goes into the workforce stuff?
Right.
I can bring you back all the workforce stuff and what's in it. I don't want to misspeak on what's in there.
Okay.
But it includes corporate training and development and partnerships. It includes opportunities like Surge Tech with Baycare or we're trying to work with some of the utility companies for a lineman program. It's separate, so I can bring that back to you to give you in writing what that is, so you'll know.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Bello, some of the courses within the non-credit also include a lot of our continuing education courses as well. So for nursing, we do have about 75% of the non-credit is workforce, and then we have a small portion that is outside of the workforce, which is our continuing education for law enforcement, fire, those type of courses.
So it's not all.
Right. So we'll bring that back next month.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Ms. Hunt?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Hunt, this is, considering where we've come from the past few years,
The past 2 years.
this is fantastic, and I just want to commend you and everyone else for your hard work. And first, nailing the budget so accurately this past year, but secondly, also listening to some of the guidance that we've given in the past couple years, especially in relation to the reserves, and coming out right side up this year and in the black. So thank you all so much. I know how much went into this, the conversations, the long hours, and the difficult decisions to make cuts, but this is great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all.
Good job.
Not to go off script, but since you talked about bringing back the workforce, I have a personal request with respect to workforce, which I know is kind of, from a business person's perspective, all of our hot button. And we harp on it a lot with respect to what are we doing for workforce development. And I would like us to start talking about the distinction between what we're doing at our Workforce Institute, which is some of these numbers from a budgetary standpoint that we definitely need to get in line, versus what we're doing for our employers in the community. We do so many programs directly for our employers that are credit-producing programs and degree-producing programs that are in direct response to employers' needs that don't fall under the workforce development category. So I would like us to be well educated about those distinctions, because knowing that from a legislative priority standpoint, that is the legislative priority, is what are we doing as a college to employ our residents. And if we only talk about the Workforce Institute, which unfortunately has been neglected at St. Petersburg College in the past for whatever reason, or I don't want to say neglected, has not been as successful as we'd like it, I think we're leaving a very significant amount of our success story untold. And I don't know how to bridge that gap, but just our conversation last week about the new programs for nursing and how we're changing some training with respect to how adding different classes to be responsive to healthcare needs. And you've given me several examples that fall under the academic world that we don't necessarily talk to under the workforce, but that's part of the workforce story. And so I would just make a personal plea that when we're having those discussions, we talk about it collectively, because I think it's easy in a big institution to separate the academic side from the Workforce Development Institute side, and knowing we keep focusing on the workforce development, and we need to work on both, but I would love to see, I don't want to miss out on those success stories.
You're right on, and the consultant made it clear our plan needs to be integrated so that the story is clearer. Where it's not workforce is over here, credit over here. It's actually an academic pathway that shows how people can get on and off. And so one of the plans is to further integrate what we're doing so that we can tell a comprehensive, clear story. We haven't done that. So that was one of the recommendations.
So this is another thing that I feel like we've been talking about for a long time, every month. I know you just finished with the consultant, and that was not a dig at all, but can the plan to improve and grow be shared with us?
We're working on it. We have a lot of moving parts, but yes, it will be. Promise.
Do we know when?
I'll have to let you know.
Okay.
It has a budgetary cost, so I have to be careful with that.
Thank you.
I was just gonna add that this is maybe something that, like Ms. Bella just said, I would like to see the plan, and then maybe in January, or was it December? We do our strategic planning session, that we spend some time actually giving clear direction to Dr. Williams and staff, what we'd like to see involved in it. As business people, I think a lot of times we can add value. You know, for example, we were talking about earlier about folks coming back to college. We haven't done a good job of that. Well, Mr. Stonesifer can tell you directly that the economy is robust. Everybody has a job that wants a job. If you're waiting tables and you're making $600 a week, you are not coming back to school right now. But when the economy tanks, you're going to head back to St. Pete College, right?
That's
and
right.
so we need to, I think that we should really spend some time on this, and maybe in December, and figure out how to give some really strategic help instead of, yeah.
Agreed. Thank you. Sorry for to digress there. But.
Sorry.
Moving on to administrative matters. In our packets, we have a human resources personnel report that we need to take action on. Are there any questions? And if not, is there a motion?
So moved. Oh, second.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Miles.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam President, members of the board. My name is Brian Miles, and this morning I will be briefing you on where we are with our physical footprint. Specifically, I am bringing forward to you a recommendation for the district office today. Before I get into that, though, however, let me just recap a little bit. Most of you know we have been at this physical footprint review for 3 years now. We've looked at the majority of our 12 campuses, centers, and sites, and 2.6 million square feet of space. We've been very busy, and today is, I guess, one of the fruits of our labor. We can bring you this recommendation, hopefully move forward with our plan thus far. When we met at the August workshop, you asked me for additional information so that you could make additional decisions going forward. One of the items you asked me to bring forward was a breakdown of our space utilization college-wide. This is not directly in response to that. You will see that information at a later date. We're compiling it. But I did want to give you a snapshot of how our space utilization has fluctuated since 2001, 2002. So please allow me to orient you to this chart. This is average classroom utilization versus college-wide square footage. Over to the left side of the chart, you see classroom utilization in multiples of 10 and the percentage running along that left side. On the right side, in multiples of 500,000, you see the total college square footage. Square footage is given in the orange bars for particular fiscal years, and the classroom utilization, the average college-wide classroom utilization, is provided in blue. So if we start at the left with fiscal year 2001, 2002, we see an average classroom utilization of just over 90%. And we see that our square footage at the time was just over 1.5 million square feet. Okay? Everybody with me so far? Okay. So then move through the years and you see our square footage steadily increase. In 2006, between 2006 and 2008, we increased our square footage by 400,000. From 2011 to fiscal year 17-18, we added another 100,000 square feet. And so today our total is 2.6 million square feet. You see our space utilization in 2001, 2002, all the way through the first year of the recession, 08, 09, decreased. And then in the recession, for a couple years after the recession ended, until 2011, 2012, we saw a steady increase in our space utilization. That was primarily due to the increase in enrollment. Most of you know that our enrollment tends to run inverse to how well the economy is performing. As the economy does well, most people go back to work and don't take as many classes. When the economy worsens, our enrollment tends to increase. So that's what you see in those key years. Following our peak enrollment in 2011-2012, you see our space utilization decrease every year, with the exception of between fiscal year 14-15 and 15-16. It went up by 0.1%. Okay? So I just wanted to orient you. I wanted to kind of give you an overview of where we are from a space utilization standpoint. Again, this is not the complete picture. This is a snapshot, and this is only classroom. We will bring back space utilization with respect to labs and with respect to all spaces that we operate. But I wanted you to see a general trend over time to help you make the decision regarding district office property today.
Mr. Miles,
Yes,
may I
ma'am.
interrupt and ask the difference in overall enrollment from 2011, 2012 to the 2017-18? I know that's probably not a number you have it on.
I'm happy
kind of
to
looking
provide
past
that.
you at Dr. Bernard, but
We're happy to bring back that information.
Okay.
I'll send it to
Not
you.
it was specifically, but is enrollment about the same? Is it higher? Is it lower? That was.
Madam Chair, I also have a question. Dr. Williams, do those like ENC 1101 and MAT, right? Is that the other one, math?
The math,
Are those classes on 2-day schedules, or do we teach them on a 3-day schedule? 2-day schedules.
2 or 1 if they do evenings. Might do a night class for 3 hours, but 2.
Okay.
Not 3.
Thank you.
I can tell you that at the peak of our enrollment, our FTE, full-time equivalent, was above 20,000. I think it was mid to low 20s, if I recall correctly. It is now around 18, 19,000, as I recall. But we'll bring back those specifics for you.
That's full-time enrolled?
Full-time equivalent, yes,
Not
sir.
overall. I mean, that's sufficient. I was just curious.
Okay.
If it was significantly distorted.
One thing I do want to point out, and this goes to Trustee Gibbins' concern at the workshop about being able to grow. I think just looking at this, and again, we'll bring back more specifics, but just looking at this, I feel that we have sufficient room to grow at the institution from a square footage and class utilization standpoint.
But I'm glad you said that, because that makes me question it even more now, seeing this sheet, because you're about to take offline a building and take some of this space. When I look at the 2011 and 2012, we were almost maxed out in terms of space, right?
But we were only at 82% utilization, though.
In 2012 and 2011?
Yeah.
Correct.
But keep in mind,
Percentage on the left, not just the interaction of the two lines.
Yeah. And keep in mind, over the last 10 years, our online enrollment it's almost 50% of our enrollment. So we have to be very careful with space. And as we have moved to online learning, that has caused us to utilize even less space. So doesn't mean we should continue to grow online, because I'm not sure that it is good for all students. As we look at success rates, it's convenient for students until they get in it. And so next week, our advisors will have students come and say, take me out of online and put me in the on-campus sections. So
Dr. Williams, the question I asked about MAT and the ENC 1101, you know and I know, since Jeb Bush, the one question we get asked all the time, do you use your classroom space on Fridays?
and the answer is
Because
no.
the legislators and legislature feels like when they come to your campus on a Friday, there are no classes being taught. Like these professors say, I don't want to teach on Friday, free day, whatever. That's why I asked about these core courses in MAT and ENC. Maybe we would do better in retention if they were taught 3 days a week instead of 1 and 2, right? Because they have more time in class with the instructor as opposed to just doing what other colleges are doing. And I'm not saying you did that. I'm just saying we did that. We made that decision a while ago. Some administrator made that decision a while ago. But maybe that would help with this, how we're using, if we are actually using our space, number one. And number two, also may help with retention. I would look at those two as kind of, and we don't have the data to support it, but we would have the data to support it if we tried it. And that's all I'm saying. Leave it alone.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, can I ask a dumb question? How did you arrive, you're very analytical, like how did you arrive at how did you get the numbers, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like what's the equation?
Sure, we report our space utilization numbers to the state each year. So I'd love to take credit for this chart, but my handy assistant did it. She pulled the state numbers and did this compilation of average classroom utilization.
But is that based on, I guess I'm asking how they even
What
measure
formula
it.
does
Is
the
it
state use?
Each person takes up 100 square feet and we've got
Yeah, I can
2.6
bring that back
million,
as
or-
well. I'm happy to share that. I don't have it with me, but I'll happily share that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd be
thank you.
happy to share that. I think at the end of the day, the overarching factors when we look at space utilization are enrollment, square footage, and then modalities of learning, the online learning that Dr. Williams mentioned. Okay, so please just keep those factors in mind. Okay, our physical footprint review and the need to reduce it, or the benefits of reducing, include a reduction in operating costs year over year, savings on future maintenance costs of any buildings or properties we take offline, an increase in departmental efficiencies and synergies by co-locating departments into perhaps a co-working space and in closer proximity to one another. Currently, we have some departments like the HR department which are split up. So part of our proposal to relocate this department from DO to another space would be to combine that department, achieve some synergies. Improve space utilization for state reporting and state funding purposes, and also to reduce our institutional reliance on state funding for capital outlay and capital improvement projects going forward. Okay, let's talk about the district office building, which is right around the corner. And I just want to give you some overview of what that property looks like. The building sits on 6.6 acres. It's a 79,000 square foot, 2-story building. Attached to the back of the building is approximately 16,000 square feet of warehouse space. So if we do decide to move from this building, we'll need to find a new location for the equipment that is stored there. A lot of it could probably be deemed surplus and we would just do away with it. The rest could go to the Tarpon warehouse. We purchased the building in 2005 and the overall property. The purchase price was $6.1 million, of which we used $1.5 million in PICO funds from the state. And please remember that number, I'll talk about it in just a minute. $391,000 came from St. Petersburg College's foundation, and $4.2 million came from our unrestricted operating budget, Fund 1X. We've occupied it since late 2006. We have 16 departments or functions and 180 employees operating out of district office today. All of those functions are administrative in nature. We have no students taking classes in there, and so any decision about DO today would not negatively impact students. And then just as a particularity with this particular property, we do have a cell tower on the property, and we own the land underneath the cell tower, but the cell tower is owned by one of the major cell phone providers, and they have a land lease with us. We rent space on the tower from them, but they actually own the tower at this point. So if we sold DO or otherwise disposed of it, it would be subject to their rights on the tower. Okay? Now you ask, why do we start the reduction of our footprint with the district office? Well, I've already mentioned some of the reasons. It houses only administrative staff. There would be no negative impact to students. We feel, and our real estate analysts feel, that the property is currently marketable and should be for some time to come. The building contains excess office space. that we could duplicate elsewhere. We could find office space at other sites to house the functions that are currently at DO. The data center that we have at district office is currently underutilized. It used to house many more servers and equipment than it currently houses. We've moved a lot of that equipment, or some of that equipment, off-site to a different site for catastrophe purposes. We have reduced the amount of hardware equipment that we need, and we've moved a lot of our functioning into the cloud. So just general improvement of our efficiencies and equipment, and that space is currently underutilized. We estimate that the annual operating cost savings of moving out of this building would be about $555,000. That includes energy, utilities, maintenance, so on and so forth. Okay? Okay, we have previously spoken about two options if and when we dispose of this property. We could dispose by sale. We could also attempt to lease the property to one or more tenants. And I just want to highlight some of the features of each option. With a sale, if we were to sell this, we could potentially use the sale proceeds to help offset the cost of renovating space at 4 other sites. We could potentially use any excess proceeds from the sale for future capital improvement projects at those 4 other sites or elsewhere at the college. And of course, we would reduce our footprint and increase our space utilization metrics. If we choose to lease this site, we would not achieve any improvement on our space utilization. The property would stay on our books. We would serve as a landlord, and we currently have one lease in that building. It's a small lease, and they're getting ready to move out. But keep in mind, our primary purpose is to provide education, not to be in the business of being a landlord. So we would not prefer that option. Little or no funding for migration renovations if we choose to rent instead of sell. And then you see some of the market value for rent. That's an estimate, but an updated estimate as of yesterday, we're looking at probably $15 per square foot. The rentable space is about 67,000 square feet for just over $1 million annually in rent proceeds. If you start to back out a lease commission, utilities, building maintenance, a tenant improvement allowance, which is often requested by corporate tenants, that number starts to dwindle pretty quickly, okay? All of that to prep you to say that I'm in favor of selling if you're so inclined. Now, before I give you what I think your options are for disposal of the DO property, I also wanted to mention that you had asked me at the board workshop in August to bring back some space information about downtown, which is one of the sites we would look to move into. And this next slide is a little bit out of order, but I just wanted you to get a glimpse of it. We'll bring back more information next time. I wanted to let you know that we're working on your request. So real quickly, take a look at some of the square footage, the allotment to what function at downtown, and we'll have a further discussion at the next board meeting. Notably on this, there is about 24,000 square feet of space that's completely undeveloped. Okay. Okay. That brings me to what I believe your options are today. It's probably not a full list, but I think you have at least 3. Before I give you the options, however, let me just say that at the August board workshop, we spoke about sending a letter to the state to see if we could determine whether the state would want us to credit back to them the $1.5 million in PICO funds that we used for the original purchase of the district office property. There are state statutes and state requirements for educational facilities that help guide this issue. And SREF, state requirements for educational facilities, provides that when disposing of real property, a college would take the sale proceeds, deposit those into a depository account pursuant to SREF, and then credit the fund source used for the original acquisition. So as we've gone through this analysis of whether we would be able to keep the sale proceeds, We've attempted to contact the state several times by phone, by email, and we haven't really been able to get a good answer on whether they would require us to return 1.5 million or some depreciated amount on the 1.5 million. In your packet is the letter we sent to the state. It outlines what we intend to do with the sale proceeds, and it asks in bold print specifically what the state's position would be. I'm waiting to hear back. As soon as I hear back, I will let you know their position. Now, I believe your options today are threefold. Number one, I think you could take a vote today to dispose of the district office property. That includes the building and the parcel on which the building sits. And you would declare the property unnecessary for educational ancillary purposes. That tracks the language of SREF and the statutes. Okay? You could do that irrespective of what the state eventually tells us if we receive a response. Okay? That's option one. If in fact we get a response from the state, we'll apprise you of that response, and then we can figure out what to do from the sale proceeds we might receive. That's option one. Option two would be to wait until a later meeting, until we have a response from the state, assuming we get one, and then have this discussion and take a vote on the options at that time. Option three would be to take a vote to dispose of the district office property and have that vote subject to the state telling us they would require no more than $1.5 million back from the sale proceeds. In other words, if the state were to come back and say the building sold for some amount over what we purchased it for, they want to keep the entire amount, then if your vote is subject to going no higher than 1.5 million, you could come back at a later board meeting, revisit the issue, and take another vote. It would essentially cancel the vote that you took by capping it at 1.5 million. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I know it's kind of convoluted, and we're a little bit in a quagmire with not knowing where the state would end up on this issue. But I feel those are your three options today. There might be more. I'm glad we have a chair who is also a real estate attorney to help craft new options.
Now, Chair, I have a
Thank you, Mr. Miles.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gibbons.
Mr. Miles, thank you. Great presentation. What is the actual cost of the renovation?
So if we proceed with the plan I have discussed with each of you individually, with the exception of Mr. Kidwell, and I will make my way around to him, the cost of renovating those other four sites would be $6.5 million is the original estimate from the architects, but that's before we've gone back and asked them to reduce some of their costs and estimates, pull out some of the furniture fees. We intend to reuse a lot of the furniture.
What is the sale? What will be the estimated sale price of the?
I hesitate to put anything out.
Well, I mean the range. There's a
range. I would say that comfortably speaking, you're looking anywhere between 7 and 10 million.
So this could potentially be almost a wash.
That's correct.
Keep in mind, we'll be saving operational dollars, though, going forward each year.
Yeah, but I guess the reason I asked that question, Mr. Stonesifer, Madam Chair, board members, is I would be inclined to do nothing because we are put here with the fiduciary responsibility of making sure that we do the right thing based upon what the college has asked for. We asked for this building. We built this building. And there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know whether we got to give the it could be a wash with the 1.5 million. What if they say we give back the 1.5 million, we sell it for 7 million, right? We're at negative. What if we sell the building for $7 million, and he's saying the renovations are $6.5 million, and they say we want the whole 1.5 million back? Well, we're in the negative. I get what you're saying, but I want to have some answers. The other thing is, the other reason I want an answer from the state is be mindful, we are under attack as a community colleges lately in the legislature, right? And now we're going to say we're going to get rid of a building that we don't have an answer from the state from yet. So I just want to be very careful.
That's what they want us to do, though, is we're under attack mostly because of space utilization as well.
Yeah, but
So
we don't
if-
know the answer to this
If we're
question.
going to them asking for funds to build additional facilities for things that are needed, but we're not efficiently using the buildings that we have currently, that doesn't make sense either.
I got you, but here's the thing. When you say, well, you asked for this building, you got this building, you're disposing of this building, and now you're going to lose money on the whole deal.
First of all, to
Doesn't
that
make sense.
point,
We don't know.
we had this discussion at the workshop.
We did.
That with respect to the sale price and the potential of losing money, because this was obviously one of Trustee Bellows' concerns, was that we can declare the property surplus, but require, the motion would include requiring the contract to come back, and we can put floors in the contract. So that exact fact pattern that you're talking about, we can prevent up front.
Yeah, but we don't have that fact pattern here today.
We can.
We're talking about that.
We can with the correct motion. Trustee Bellows?
I'm still struggling. I'm sorry. I'm with Devron on this one. If I'm the state and I see that we can maintain a pretty amazing piece of real estate and generate potentially, and I think $15 a square foot, I mean, I don't know who gave you those numbers, but that's not what I pay. Not what most businesses pay.
Right.
So I believe that's a very conservative number. We have the opportunity to generate, on a conservative side, $550,000 a year. And we're talking about less reliance on the state. I mean, every wealthy person I know is a property manager. I mean, has real estate as an investment because of the money that you can generate from it. So to me, it's less fiscally responsible to sell the building and potentially spend every dollar than it is to use it as a way to generate revenue for the college.
Well, I mean, there's two pieces to this. One, over time, we've asked the state, as many colleges, for several buildings, and education has changed over time. We asked for buildings before online became online. Do we continue to keep a building that we asked for, that the state gave $1.5 million towards, that the college and the foundation gave the remaining part? It wasn't that the state paid for we're not talking about Bay Pines where the state basically paid for the whole building. We're talking about an administrative building that does not offer any courses, that is continued to be counted as a part of our space utilization plan that we no longer need. Do we keep it and continue to have that calculated, which impacts our funding because of the utilization, and when we keep it, we own all of it. We have to keep maintaining it, we lease it, whatever we do. We won't get the funding to do any movements or shrink our footprint, which is what we said we needed to do, because we have outgrown, we've got too much space. So if we're saying, well, let's keep it, then we won't be able to do a lot of the other things we need to do if we keep a building for the sake of keeping the building that we don't need. That's my biggest concern. We've outgrown, and education has significantly changed. High school is now online. I mean, things have changed, so do we keep it for the sake of keeping it? That's my biggest concern, and that's what we talked about in the
Madam Chair.
workshop and in the one-on-one meetings when we met with you guys.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I hate to disagree with Dr. Williams openly, but we had this building when we went and got the money for the one that we're building right now, right? If the legislature is going to give us money, they're going to give us money. It has nothing to do with, I've never heard a legislator in my 22 years of being a part of that process say to me, what's your space utilization look like before I give? They either want you to have the facility because we need it for, upkeep, maintenance, or a new building, whatever. I've never heard that before. I will tell you that the folks in the education in Turlington building, yes, they probably look at that, but they have never stopped the process from happening if the legislature deems it appropriate and they want to give the money. I guess my reluctance today has to do more with, I don't have an answer from the state, the people in the Turlington building. And I want to know if we're gonna lose on this deal, because that will come up. That will come up. If we go into a deal and we don't know, and then they come back at the last minute, pull the rug from under our feet and say, yeah, you gotta give the 1.5 million, and we're stuck out here with $1 million, and the foundation, Mr. Shepherd sitting here today, we go to them and say we need $1 million when we have other needs that we need to be working with them on because we need to cover this cost. I as a business person, I can't tell you I can make that decision right now today with what I have.
I think one of the motions that we're asking the board to consider is to allow us to move forward with it and bring a contract back. If the contract is $5 million, we won't take it.
No, I understand. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Here's the deal. While I do understand, Trustee Gibbons, you don't have people asking you about space utilization, I have had legislators ask me about space utilization as we seek to do the health education center. I have had people ask, we've had big meetings just last week on how they're going to ramp up space utilization as a means for PICO and looking at funding that we need. It may not have happened with you yet. It's coming, you know, and I'm just letting you guys know what we're being told. And I'm not here to argue with the board about this. I know we've talked about this for 2 years. We've met with you individually. We met with you as a group last month. And so I'll trust your judgment on which way to go, but then we need to be prepared for the space utilization issue as we move forward.
Can I make one
I'm
additional?
prepared to answer that question before any legislator.
Well,
But I just don't, I don't have enough facts, for me personally.
to Dr. Williams' point, I look at the very first chart that Mr. Miles put up and see that our space utilization for classroom utilization is 60%. Our mission is education. Our number one priority is education. And if we have 40% of our space that's used for non-education purposes, I think that's an unreasonable ratio. I think if you look at back of office, general standards of operations and back office, 40% is a huge amount of back office. And we're not talking about going from 60% space utilization to 90% with the sale of an 80,000 square foot building. We're talking about a drop in the bucket of our overall space utilization. And from a fiscally responsible and fiduciary standpoint, I have a hard time sitting here saying that we're doing a good job when we have 40% of a space as a college that's not being used for students or student support. Not that administration's not student support,
Right.
but direct student access. I think that that does not make me proud as a trustee to say we have 40% of our space
So get rid
that's
of all
not
the
used.
functions in the building. Could you get rid of all the functions in the building?
What do you mean?
Could you get rid of every function that's in this facility?
No, but
And
if we
operate a
have
college.
40%.
So then get rid of the functions. You're saying it doesn't have a direct impact to get rid of every function in the building.
No, you didn't.
And then we can get rid
You're
of the
ignoring
building.
my statement that I said, not that they're not important, but they don't take up 40%. They take up not even 5%, 2% of our overall space.
I understand what
And
you're
if
saying,
it's a
Madam Chair.
fiscal impact of $500,000 a year for expenses, how do we not consider that expense on a recurring basis when we're already paying for the space in all of our other buildings? So we're not, I mean, we're saving that, but then we're already paying for that space to be used in the other buildings that's not being used.
So there's an easy way for us to figure this out. Just get an answer from the state.
To me, it doesn't hinge on $1.5 million or less.
Okay.
Because the motion that we're making today has nothing to do with the potential sales price. The motion today has to do with the fact that we have 40% of our space that is completely unused for our core purpose. And are we willing as a board to accept that, or are we willing to say we should dispose of that and be better stewards of our resources?
I think it's our role to explore all options. And in my view, this vote today is to do simply that. If we get information back from the state of Florida that tells us something that we don't like, then we don't go forward with the sale. If we get a contract that we don't like, we don't go forward with the sale. But we don't know that until we move forward to explore what possibilities are out there.
I think that's what we sent the college back to do at this workshop, is to explore all options. This is all the options that we have.
Well,
I think they brought that
We don't
back.
have a price point, we don't have a mark, I mean.
We have a move
You're-
forward on
they're
Until we put a
saying-
sign in the yard.
Tell me if I'm understanding correctly, that we will put the sign in the yard. That's all we're moving on.
Correct.
So we're not moving to accept anything. It's just see what we can get for the
And to
public.
clarify, I'll ask Ms. Gardner that is there any, if we declare this surplus and we decide not to move forward with the sale, is there a penalty or what action would we need to take to reestablish it as a necessary educational and ancillary purpose?
Okay. I believe we would have to amend the spot survey, and I guess we could have a subsequent resolution to say that we would be using it for educational and ancillary purposes. So I don't think it's something we can't go back from.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, please.
Do we have, if we're leasing it to somebody and generating $1 million, let's call it $1 million, does that still have to count in our space utilization? Or
Yes.
can we not, I mean, I could see sitting across from the legislature tours and saying, we saw it as a revenue opportunity. We saw it as a way to generate dollars for the college.
It's
We're
not
not
space.
using that space, it's leased.
No, it still counts.
I just can't imagine one of them having a problem with that. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I mean, if you're generating $1 million a year,
I think one of the balances
We
is
just can't-
the legislators, for the purpose of potential future funding, may not have a problem with that, but the formulas system-wide that are utilized would ding us for that. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
I think one of the important points to remember, and we discussed it at the board workshop, is how the state has postured on real estate over the last few years. Number one, we didn't receive any PICO dollars this year. Number two, we didn't receive any SOTA dollars for renovations this year. And number three, we haven't received operating costs for new facilities for at least 2 or 3 years now. So the traditional sources of revenue from the state to help us maintain, renovate, or construct new buildings has significantly decreased. Also, as you look at the legislation this year for the fund balance, I've briefed you on that, and the requirement to arrive year-end at a fund balance of 7%, and the need to have a spending plan for that fund balance if you are over 7%. The state has enumerated in statute 6 reasons why you would spend that down. 4 of them have to do with facilities in one way or another, whether it's renovating facilities, whether it's cleaning up after a hurricane. But to me, that sends a strong message from the state that if you have capital outlay assets that you can use, that you can be creative with, you need to do so before you come back to the state and ask for new dollars for PICO or the other sources I mentioned. So just a side note, but I wanted you to be aware of that. We're fortunate at SPC that we do have a nice real estate portfolio. And I think this is a matter of leveraging that portfolio to help us with operations, help us renovate space so that we can have better service to students at those sites where we intend to renovate.
If there's any other questions, can we entertain a motion or not?
You know, in my opinion, it makes the most sense, both from an efficiency standpoint, to move administrators back onto campuses, efficiency of use of space as well, but also the cost savings each year. I'd at least like to know what our options are, and that means getting an answer from the state, and that means potentially seeing what an actual sales price would be. So that being said, I'll move to resolve that the board declares the district office property unnecessary for educational or ancillary purposes. And I'd move to approve the spot survey number 2, version 7, for the disposal of real property. And this is all contingent upon, as we get further down the process, understanding what the state wants to do, with their $1.5 million investment from years ago, and understanding of what an actual contract and sales price would look like, as well as more detail on the renovation costs, if that's a long-winded motion.
Is there a second? Anyone for purpose of discussion?
This is for.
As long as what we are voting on is putting a sign in the yard, I will second. Nothing past that.
That is
You wanna-
There's a
correct.
lot in that.
Let's
beyond putting
second
the
it,
sign in
and
the
then
yard.
let's confirm with Ms. Gardner. So there's been a motion and a second to resolve to declare the district office as unnecessary for educational or ancillary purpose and authorize the disposal of said property for the approval of the spot survey with the condition, and this is what I'm relying on Ms. Gardner, because I don't know if a resolution to to declare surplus can be conditioned, but with the condition that prior to any action, a formal plan with actual, do you want them to bring back actual proposed contract to sale, or do you want them to bring back a budget so we can approve a floor contract price?
I guess it's back to the original issue. I don't think that we can decide until we know potentially what the costs are
Right.
for the renovations, until we know what kind of sale price we can get, and until we know what the state is going to expect out of that sale price.
So,
But we can't do any of that without
Right.
putting it on the market.
Right.
We can't get those answers. So that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
I will second putting it on the market so that we can get those answers.
so can we, that's what I'm wondering. So if what the staff would bring back to us is the renovation plan with actual numbers, and the budget differential inclusive of the $1.5 million impact from the state. But this would authorize the sale of the building, and so until those other items are answered, we would not consider an actual contract for the sale. Is that what, I'm
Yes.
just trying to
Yes.
Yes.
be clear, and Ms. Gardner, you think that passes muster from,
I do, because there's the two conditions precedent before you dispose of it, and that would be the resolution determining it unnecessary for educational purposes, and also the amendment of the spot survey, but you're saying it's conditioned on having the actual contract come back to the board and a plan. And
Right.
I do think that passes muster.
Does that also include us knowing what the state is saying about the
well, that would be the
1.5?
financial plan.
That would be part of the,
I think we would
part of the
have-
plan.
If the state does not respond, because we've called 3 times, we sent the letter, how long if we don't get a response?
In my, I would leave that. I don't think it's how long, because I don't think we're going to consider this again until we have
The
an actual
information.
offer.
Okay.
In the plan, and if you don't have a response from the state, I would anticipate that your plan is going to have a worst-case scenario contingency, and then we would have to
Right.
consider that. I mean,
Correct.
Let me just say.
and you have heard loud and clear that probably 2 of your trustees would not.
Well, no, we
Be-
want to hear from the state.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
I guess
Everybody
in
does.
agreement.
my big concern is why don't we get these answers prior to? I don't understand why we have to make a motion to get these answers that we're talking about. That's number one. Number two is I want us to be very cognizant of, we just came out of a situation where we almost went into a fire sale to make the budget whole. And you praised Ms. Hunt this morning on making sure, and the job that they well done on making sure that we're whole in the budget. I'm not ready to go back into that situation, making haphazard deals and making sure I don't have all the information.
Neither am I.
And so I'm not gonna, I mean, that's where I am on this. The Commissioner of Education could clearly meet with the President. We could request a meeting and we can get an answer on this. And instead of trying to push something forward, to put a sign in the yard, as you all say, it doesn't tell us anything. We put a sign in the yard, so what if we don't get any offers?
then it's a moot point.
Well, but what I'm telling you, so why are we doing it? Let's get the answers that we can get first, and then put the sign in the yard. I mean, I've never sold a home and said, oh, I'm gonna put my sign in the yard and see what it looks like next month, and then if it doesn't look right, you know, I'm gonna go. It had the two things have. I mean, I don't see the. There's a lot more. You said that Ms. Bello asked a question. She said, we're voting to put the sign in the yard. That number 2 that you're voting on is more than putting a sign in the yard. You are saying that this is not property that we need to have, and that's fine. That's how the board feels. I'm okay with that. I'm not voting for it until I get the answers that I need to have to make sure that I can say that on because from 2006, when we built the building for $6 million, you're telling me Mr. Miles said a $7 to $10 million price range is the real estate's only going up $1 million, and then we may lose 1.5 million of that in the sale. I just want to see all
the purpose of voting on this is to get all the answers, at least in my mind.
I don't know
That's
why we
the
couldn't get
reason
the
to
answers
do it.
without voting on it.
Well,
What prohibits us from
appraisal.
getting the answers? Nobody's telling. Could you please, Ms. Gardner, tell me what prohibits us from getting the answers without voting on this?
We don't know if there will
that?
ever be, excuse me, Ms. Gardner, we don't know that there will be an offer. And I think that if there's not an offer on the building or not an acceptable offer on the building, this board, I would presume, is not going to approve a contract or the disposition.
And any offers would come through a public competitive process, just so
Right.
you're aware. We're going for highest and best value of the property.
I think what Trustee Gibbins is saying, and I think Trustee Bello is saying the same thing, let's get the information from the state to figure out what happens with the 1.5. If we don't hear from the state, we'll bring that information back, which we have not yet received anything, and we can find out how
Just
much
like
we
you
can
guys
sell.
are saying it's irresponsible for us not to get rid of this building, I can see the legislature saying it was irresponsible to ask for it, right, in the first place, get it, and now you want to get rid of it. So that means that we haven't done a good job of making sure the buildings that we need. That has nothing to do with this president or this administration, because she wasn't the president. But what I would tell you is, that could very well be their thoughts too.
That perhaps could be, but my response would be, we're 60% utilization, we have to do better as a board. So
And they would say-
we have a motion on the table in a second.
Let's vote on
We can move forward with this vote, or we can table this another month, but at this point, I would ask for a vote on the motion in the second, which is to approve the 2 items that are the requested action with the conditions as articulated by Ms. Gardner, that any further action would come back with both any potential price as well as the plan.
So I'm going to ask another question, and I'm
Sure.
sorry. I'm
No.
not trying to prolong this,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't. Is number 2, does that have to be a part of this conversation? Because what I said was to put a sign in the yard. That's what I would second. So does that have to happen in order to be able to put a sign in the yard?
In order to advertise for sale, we have to declare the property surplus.
Correct.
And through our rules, you want to speak to the spot
No,
survey?
you're hitting the nail on the head. Once we declare it surplus, we have to amend our spot survey. So it's a way of updating the state that, we'd like this to come off our books, subject to what we're describing here today.
And to clarify, you said that we can recover from that.
That would be my understanding. Right, because the spot survey can be amended again if there's a decision that we can't dispose of the property per the SREF.
I feel like we're in a rock and a hard place because we can't get the answers without doing this. And we can't, okay. Okay.
I would like more information, which is part of why I would like to see this motion go through.
So
But you're making the declaration before you get the information.
But we can't get the information until we make the declaration.
Okay, let's vote. I'm ready.
In an effort.
Welcome, Ms. Chair.
We've been talking about this for a year and a half, so I look at 60% and I'm just ready, and I see $500,000 a year of expenses. But that being said, if we table this for a month, do you think that we could get information? Do we have the funds to pay an architect to get more refined information on the relocation? Because that, we may or may not get the $1.5 million, but the renovation costs,
We
the
have all those
6.5.
costs. The architect has already worked all those numbers.
But you said they would probably be refined, so the
I
6.5.
I would go back and ask them to sharpen their pencils. It was their first pass, and some of the fees are higher than I've seen us pay in other situations. And as I said before, there's a furniture allowance in there. We intend to reuse a lot of our furniture. I think we could whittle down some of those expenses.
So the two pieces of missing information that we're seeking is a minimum purchase price, which until it's listed for sale and we go out to public bid and ask for responses to bid, we don't know what that minimum price would be. Or the three pieces, the relocation plan, which they can refine further, but we know it's about 6.5, but may come down, and the $1.5 million, which is, in my mind, directly related to the purchase price, and whether that's just...
Those are the three critical items.
Those are the
yes.
three things. Will delaying this vote today won't get us the purchase price information. We have an appraisal and an estimate of the 7 to 10, so that we've already gotten that. So a delay today would give us more time to get a better number from the architect with respect to the reutilization of equipment, and potentially the answer on the state, maybe or maybe not.
It'll give us more time.
Are those two things what you're looking for, or is yours going to be contingent on the third, which we don't know anyway? I'm just wondering if tabling a month would help you.
I'm not asking you to table a month.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it would help.
I mean, we might get the answer from the state and we might get a more refined number, but we're still not going to know potentially what the market value of the property is. So,
Right.
no,
Plus,
delaying
I-
isn't.
Okay.
But I'm sorry. I'd like to get a second opinion on the 7 to 10 number. In 2006, it's 19, I mean, in
The
12
only way we're
years.
going to get that is to
Would-
see what the market response is.
Well, how do we get this?
Would two
We had
appraisals
we had real
suffice?
estate- We had a real estate company go out and give us
Well,
this,
let's,
right? So-
Mr. Miles is just saying, we have one appraisal, so what was your suggestion, Mr. Miles?
Would two appraisals suffice for an estimate of what the property is worth? Now, it's not market value. We
Right.
have to see who comes forward and how badly they want it, but it would give you an appraised value to let you know.
Yeah, because 7 to 10, I mean,
So-
that's a big number, and it's only $1 million off in 13 years. The building's only appreciated $1 million in the land.
It's $1 million plus reduced
It's a big
operating
spread. I was going to
costs.
say, or $4 million.
We're not talking about $3, we're talking about
No,
$3
no, but
million
what I'm saying is,
difference. I mean,
Okay.
what if it's 10?
What if
Then
it's 10,
a
then it's
different
3, but
conversation.
7 to 10 is a big number.
Right, but we're not going to know that until
But
we
the
go to market
bottom,
with it.
I gotta
so.
take the bottom, I can't take the top.
Right.
Okay. So delay won't necessarily help. Okay. With that being said, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion pending, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed, Mr. Gibbins. So, thank you. We expect to see the advertisements and the full financial plan coming back before we consider any
Okay.
contract for this.
Thank you for your time and guidance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know this has been a long process, so thank you all. Okay, moving on quickly through our consent agenda in your packet. There's a number of new business items. If acceptable to the board, we can go through these as a group unless there's anything particular you'd like to discuss with workforce and curriculum changes, grants and restricted funds, contracts, and other agreements, including the spot survey that we already just approved.
I move to accept the consent agenda in whole.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Informational reports in our packets are information reports on contract items, exempt and non-exempt purposes, construction contract approvals, and the computer Dell financial agreements. Any questions on those reports or discussion? There being none, we'll move on. There are no proposed changes to the Board of Trustees Rules Manual, Ms. Gardner? No public hearing? And Dr. Williams, President's report.
I'm going to say that we've been working very hard this summer, and the fall term is off to a great start, and we're moving forward. We'll be in Tallahassee in a couple of weeks. We're moving forward.
Wonderful.
That's my report.
Thank you. Our next meeting date, note that at the beginning of the meeting, we moved that from September 17th to September 24th here at the Epicenter. So please note that. Also, our ribbon cutting for the Collegiate High School in Tarpon Springs is forthcoming. So thank you there. And also, I had a note, I should have said this at the beginning. Also, the opening and grand opening next month, and Dr. Miller can talk about Nova Southeastern University's Osteopathic College in Clearwater, which is exciting partnership opportunities there. So if there is no other business before the board, then we will adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Devron. Oh, they need, real quick, they wanted to do pictures.